Hi guys, this is Justine Lin. My newest single, You Know, is available everywhere you can stream music now. You're listening to On the Porch with Front Porch Music.
Are you somebody who remembers like a Halloween when you were little and being like in a snowsuit over top of your costume and being miserable, and now you're like the kids are out and about on Halloween in like regular clothes? What the hell?
I remember it very well because my mom is an awesome seamstress, and she used to make every single one of our Halloween costumes, and we would like size them up, and she's like, okay, you're a size whatever as a child. We got to bump that up about 3 sizes because you are not going out without ski pants. There's no way.
Oh my god, that's so cute.
My mom also made a lot of my costumes, did the same thing. But there were some doozies. Like, what were some crazy ones that you had to wear?
Man, you know, I didn't really have a lot of crazy ones. I was very, like, I think I was basic even as a child. Like, I loved a Disney princess moment. Like, name one, and I was probably a Disney princess. So, and then sometimes my brother would be the corresponding, like, prince or character or something. So there's some pretty funny characters.
Welcome back to another episode of On the Porch with Front Porch Music. I'm your co-host, Jenna.
And I'm your co-host, Logan. And today we are joined with country artist, a mainstay in country music in Canada, Jess Moskaluke.
We got to spend release day with Jess. Her brand new single, Life For Me, is out right now. We talked about her release day plans, how she's going to celebrate the new single. We also talked about, we dove in a little bit. We talked about the songwriting and we talked about the criticisms that she's gotten a little bit over the years too, from not being country enough to people over the pond telling her like she sounds too Nashville, and just like staying true to herself is what she's always going to do.
And we, again, as always this season, went through her catalog and got the vibe check on where she was at when some of these songs were released. So here's our chat with Jess Moskaluke.
Welcome to the porch.
Hello, thanks for having me.
And happy release day. This is coming out a little bit later than release day, but nonetheless, what a nice, we're so grateful we get to celebrate with you.
Yes, thank you so much. This is really, really cool. I did a lot of my promo prior to this so that it could come out live on release day. So today is like you guys are my only one today, so it feels strange. I'm seeing all this promo come out, and then I was like, just kind of twiddling my thumbs. So I'm thankful to have this. So thanks for having me.
Of course. How are you celebrating release day?
Well, we were chatting earlier. I'm going to go live on Instagram later tonight just to kind of celebrate with fans a little bit. And Red Barn Brewing had kind of done up some beers that correspond with some new songs that I have for an industry event that we had that I know you guys were at. Thanks for coming.
It was very fun. We had lots of beer. It was great.
Yeah, bush party. So I saved one of those beer from Red Barn. I saved the Life For Me one. I think it's a Life For Me lager. So I saved it. So I'm going to crack that tonight. Although I should be having champagne because this is actually my 24th single today on January 24th, which was not planned.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, but I'm still going to have beer.
Fair enough.
You could do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's stopping you?
So that's what we're going to do. I think my husband and I will go out for dinner later tonight. But other than that, it's kind of, I'll say a chill day, but I'm not chill right now. I'm very excited.
Yeah, so. Of course. Why wouldn't you be? It's been almost a year or a little over a year since you've released new music too. So this is exciting. And You're entering a new chapter, new songs that we've fortunately got to hear earlier as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the new vibe? It's very true to Jess.
Yeah, it is very true. Yeah, sorry, Logan, you can go ahead.
I was going to say, it's still very Jess, but a bit of a new sound and a new era. Not to overuse that word, but...
Yeah, but it kind of is, like, it's hard not to overuse that word because Taylor did it so well by being like, hey, this is who I was for this, capsule of time, and then this is who I was for these years, because she, not to compare myself to Taylor Swift, but what we do have in common is that we've both been releasing music for a long amount of time, and it's impossible, at those ages of life to not change. So I won't say that I've changed completely who I am, but my style of music has adapted a little bit. And, you know, the things that I'm listening to now in 2025 are very different than they were in 12 or something, you know, when I was releasing music. So the new stuff is cool. It's honestly, I was kind of just exploring new sounds and borrowing from other people that I really look up to and being like, what do I like about this song? What do I like about what this artist does? And how does that relate to me? What makes sense? What's not going to scare off my fans, you know, compared to what I've done in the past? So Life for Me is cool because it's the most true to me song. They say write about what you know. And if there's one thing I know, it's small towns and bush parties. So, I've been likening Life for Me to Map Dot. I've been saying a lot that it's kind of like if Map Dot had like a cooler, edgier older sister that, you know, you want to hang out with at the bush party.
Let's talk about Map Dot too, because that is such a fundamental song to like the era in which it came out. I forget where exactly I was, but I love that song.
Embarrassingly, for the longest time, I don't know why, I read it the first time, like that the title of that song as Mad Pot, and it stuck in my head as Mad Pot, and the entire time I was like, she doesn't even say Mad Pot in the song. What is happening?
What could that song
It took
possibly
me
be
an
about?
Embarrassingly amount of time to clue in that it was Map Dot.
That's okay. Maybe just it's totally fine. We all read things slightly wrong at times.
And remember it.
That's a funny core memory to attach with that song, though.
Yeah.
I just clued into why Map Dot was special for me. I had moved home in 2020 to be with my family in my little Map Dot hometown I looked on Google the other day showing my coworker where I'm from, 940 people.
Well done. That's actually a small town. Lots of people will say, "Oh, I'm from a small town of 45,000 people." I was like,
"That's a city, dog." Yeah,
you're from a city.
And I just remember that being a thing, and I was like, "Wow!" And it gave me a little more appreciation for my little Map Dot hometown, I think, too, because I was the girl who was like, "I'm never moving home. There's nothing for me to do here," and I spent 6 months there, and I did not hate myself or the town.
Yeah, it's so cool. There's so many things I could say about Map Dot, and it's an interesting one because there are so many people that are like, I'm leaving this town, I'm never coming back. And I don't know that I ever fully felt that way. I never was like dying to get out of my hometown. I always had and always will have an appreciation for it, but I did know that there were other things out there and I wanted to explore them. But I think that I just have such strong roots here in Saskatchewan, and that I can't imagine life without being here at some point. So what Map Dot did was really, I almost said Mad Pot there, which
now we've done
it. Now it's
oh no,
you got in my brain.
Oops.
What Map Dot did is a really cool thing, because there were and still are so many people that are like, I love that song. I'm actually from Toronto, or I'm from Calgary, but I spent every summer in blah, blah, blah small town with my grandparents. And it really opened my eyes up to the way of small town living and how crucial that is for so many people's lives, whether or not they actually call a small town their hometown. They still just remember that lifestyle. And I think that that's really cool because it connected with even more people than I initially intended it to.
Well, that's actually how I connected with the song too, other than having the name wrong. But like, I'm a city boy through and through, and from Ottawa, which people in Toronto don't call that a city, but it's a city.
It is.
But like you said, every summer, all my extended family was from small towns, like really rural Ontario. And I'd spend a lot of time there, and that would kind of be where I'd go. So that's how I would relate to the song as well, just in that same way.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. It's almost a state of mind, because one of my favorite lines in that song is, sometimes we leave, but we always come back. It's a lot of people say that you can't go home, and yeah, things will change, but there's always going to be something that stays the same. So you can definitely always go home.
So let's move forward to Life for Me. It's like the cool older sister. It's like, my hometown is cool. My people are cool. The way we live is like, it's a thing to like want to do, you know?
Yeah, totally. I think that Life for Me, where it differs from Map Dot, aside from the sound entirely, those songs don't sound anything alike. But writing that song, I will say we didn't really have a plan. I didn't set out to be like, I want to write a bush party song. I want to write about what my childhood was, you know, what my high school experience was. That wasn't what we sat down to do. What we sat down to do in the writing room that day was to do all these things that I thought I couldn't. I was kind of I don't want to say it was a writing slump, but there was a little bit of a hurdle for me because I was like, okay, I've been releasing music for so long. What do I do that I haven't already done? I never want to release the same song twice. What do I do that is different, that feels true and authentic to me, and that my fans will hopefully still welcome and embrace? So that was where my headspace was at for a really long time. And it's a really challenging place to be in. And I think that the more music you release, the harder that gets. So really the goal that day wasn't, like I said, to write this song specifically, but I was like, I really love Tanner Adele. I really love Hardy. Here's kind of, you know, my Spotify playlist of songs that I've been listening to, but I don't think I can do that. Like, I'm not cool enough to do this kind of sound and blah, blah, blah. And you know, the writers in the room that day were like, we're not getting married. We're not putting this song out today. Ironically, they're like, why don't we just try it? Like, we're literally trying things on and seeing if they feel right to you. And if they don't, you don't have to record this song. We're just writing. And the irony of it all is that we're like, okay, cool. And then I was like, well, here's a little bit about me. And I kind of started talking. It was the first time I had written with these songwriters ever. And this song was like, you hear about writers that have this song in the air and you catch it. And this was that experience to me because it really just happened so fast that I was like, but I remember saying in the room after, what just happened? Like, did we write that song or did that song just kind of come? It was just, it's kind of hard to explain because it just, all of a sudden we blinked and the song was done. And yeah, so ironically, it is the first song from that kind of mindset shift that we did record and release. So it's kind of funny, but yeah, I'm really, really so excited. It's kind of metaphoric for me, for all the other songs that'll come down the pipe in the next little while.
And you've continued to write with those two writers, I believe, too, right?
Yeah, so actually it was three writers. So it was, I'll give them a shout out. It was Matt Morrissey, Jess Kane, and fellow Canadian Emily Reed.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have continued. Emily just had her first baby, so I haven't written with her as much as I have with the other two while she settles into motherhood, which she's crushing, by the way. But Matt actually ended up producing that song and one other song that I ended up recording from that trip. So it's cool. We've got new writers, we've got new producers, and some of the same ones that I've been using in the past. It feels like a really good mix to have some new and some familiar.
That makes sense. When you're creating like something that's a little bit new or a little bit off the path of what you've been doing, what are some of the things you're thinking about, that whether they're like fears or hesitations?
Yeah, lots of times they are fears and hesitations. A lot of times, if I'm not with the right people or if I'm not in the right headspace, it's really easy to be like, that's too far for country radio. That's too, and being in that for so long, that's something that I was told early in the beginning when I was just like, I'm going to write whatever I want. A lot of people, a lot of times are like, that's too pop for country. And so we did end up having to scale it back. And so that is often a fear that I have. But when I'm in the right headspace with a comfortable environment, with the right team, like I was the day that we wrote Life for Me, all that goes out the window. And I'm just like, just write, be happy, enjoy this. This is fun. You have a really cool, fun job. Do it and enjoy it while you're in it. And we can make those tweaks later. If it feels a little too pop, we can always change things a little in the studio and adjust. But yeah, there definitely are some fears at times.
It feels like a very like open process for you. Like there's always room to pivot or change it up a little bit or scale it back if you need to. It's not like you have this like tunnel vision of this is how we're doing this.
And yeah, totally. And I think it's the way that we record things. a lot of people don't like this. A lot of people love going into the studio with a band, with their band lots of times, laying down the bed tracks that day, cutting their vocals later. And that's great. I've done that, and it's an incredible experience that I'm so thankful to have done. The way that we kind of started doing it since just probably around the pandemic is kind of doing it remotely. So whoever is playing on the album, they'll send in their stuff when it's ready. I do my vocals often from either my house, or I did the vocals for a lot of these songs in Calgary with my sound engineer. And so it's kind of cool to be able to do it that way, because it does make things a lot more fluid, and it feels less locked in. You feel less committed when everybody's there. It feels a little more permanent, and I feel like I have a lot more creative freedom doing it this way.
That makes sense. Do you have a little home studio set up in your house?
Yeah.
Oh no, what did I just ask?
It's my walk-in closet, which is the best sounding room in the house because of all of the clothes. My husband and I are currently doing like a reno/addition to our house right now. So I still don't think I'll do like a permanent studio, but I think that I will be set up better. I'm getting a much bigger closet, so we'll have a little section in there. But yeah, my home studio setup. I do not claim to be an audio engineer by any means. I'm not great at it, but I know enough that I can record and send off my own vocals to someone that I love and trust to adjust the levels so they're right.
You should do like a closet session, or like
the closet sessions
off the closet floor or something. Like just...
Oh my gosh, there's the floor is mostly clothes, so I don't know if we're getting much off the floor.
That's funny.
You alluded to this a bit earlier of how you would have to, like, when you're writing, to adjust to make things more, closer to country radio. You've been doing this for a while, and you've hit a lot of major milestones, but how has the recording process, how has releasing music changed for you a bit over that time? Because like you said, you now can pivot away from that a bit, or because the industry has changed so much.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I've ever had one set way that we do release music, because I kind of feel like it's changed every single time. So it's maybe a little bit of a difficult question to answer, because it's changed like apparently 24 times. So right now, I guess the one thing that has stayed kind of constant, and this is maybe a little bit of a spoiler, but usually we will release 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 singles prior to an EP or album coming out. A lot of times I find that if we release the whole entire album, then a lot of our streaming partners feel like the songs are not new anymore because they've had access to them for so long. So we kind of have to like keep these songs like under wraps, so that ironically they get the platform they deserve. That's the one thing that I think has remained a little bit consistent. I guess in the early days, my like first, I call it my first record because it was the first record that we knew we were doing a record, but the Light Up the Night album, my whole thing was I don't even know how many songs are on that, 10 songs maybe. We want 10 singles. I want everything on this to be a single. I want the best 10 songs. And I still think that is a good, you still want the best 10 songs you can find, but it's kind of a shame because 6 or 7 of those songs may never see the light of day at radio, or they may never get on the playlist that you want them to because they are old, quote unquote, for anyone listening. So it's an interesting thing. And I think that we will definitely continue to adjust that strategy as things change in the world. But there's so much more than just the actual release part of the release strategy. There's all the social media stuff that comes along with it. When you release the video, when your website flips over to everything, when you do all the promo and which promo you choose to maximize your efforts and your time. And so yeah, it's a really constantly changing landscape. So it's not, so it's kind of a difficult question to answer for that reason, but I tried.
Do you want to talk about the business side a little bit? Because I think you've kind of moved into you have your artist career, and I'm curious how much you manage versus you let other people manage, one of those things. But also you're moving into you've moved into the management side as well. So why don't you like have you always, like, thinking back early in your career, have you always wanted, like, one, to hold some of that management or some of that ownership of your own stuff? Or do you let people kind of work on your projects? And then how has that kind of funneled into the other work that you're doing in the industry?
Yeah. So I guess the answer to part of that is no. I didn't think that this would be somewhere I was. Like, when I first started out, I didn't always say, I'm going to manage artists someday. That wasn't a mindset that I had at the time. This came to me either late 2023 or like early to mid 2024, I guess.
Okay.
I kind of just thought, you know what, the music industry is amazing, but the touring side is really hard. And if I ever have a family someday, like, how do I stay in the music industry? How do I uplift other artists around me and be a part of their careers when I really believe in their voices and stories and songs? And we met a gentleman who we're working with right now. We haven't put out music on him yet. And I really fell in love with his voice. And I was like, maybe this is a good time to talk about stepping into a management role. So I actually was on a radio tour at the time, and we had met with this young artist. My manager, Mike Denny, and I met with him. And Mike kind of let me not take the lead, but he let me ask as many questions for this young man. I actually, on the radio tour, I had talked with this young man and talked with Mike, my manager, and I kind of said, how would you feel about me helping you manage him? And Mike was like, I think that's amazing. I think you're ready. I've actually been waiting for this for years. And funny enough, my other two managers and my booking agent had said the same thing. So Mike also then said, in addition, would you like to manage Savannah Jade? And it wasn't really something I thought. I thought I was just kind of, stepping into this a little bit.
You were dipping your toes and Mike pushed you all the way in.
I was like, I just want to dip into this. I don't want to, like, what if I'm not good at it? What if I don't like it? What if I don't have time? I don't want to leave anybody high and dry. And Mike's like, no, I get that. We'll be honest and upfront about it. So we talked to Savannah Jade, and she was really excited, which is so sweet. And so yeah, I currently co-manage with my managers, two artists. And to your question about my own management team, I didn't realize that I was doing this, but I think the longer we release music, once again, the more comfortable I am in a lot of decisions, and the more knowledgeable I am about the music industry. And so I feel like I'm very much a part of my own management team as much as anybody else. They would never make me do something I don't want to, but they would explain to me why they think I should do it. And that's how I learned. So I think that I've always been a part of my management team, but as time goes on, I think that I play a bigger and bigger role. So, but it's good. I think that every artist should do that, because I think that you need to wear so many hats in today's day and age as an artist yourself. You're never just the singer. You're never just the songwriter. You're everything. You may have, agents and management and labels and assistants and all that, but you still have to do a little bit of all of that. So I think it's good to dive right in and understand as much of the industry as you possibly can.
How did you not just try to or maybe you did this, like, brain dump entirely everything onto these new artists that you know? Or did you like, okay, start here and work our way up?
Day one, grade one.
Yeah. I think I try to address problems, questions, situations as they arise, but I am a brain dumper, as you obviously can tell. But I try to organize brain dump, because I have a lot of lists. But I think that trying to address all of the situations head on as they come up and as they arise and feel important in the moment, I think is probably the best way to attack it. But yeah, if they ever said, hey, sit down and tell me everything you know, I'd be like, go get a couple bottles of wine, because this is going to take some time.
That's the best. It's really interesting to see, like, as your career evolves and you realize the things that you're learning early, that you were probably learning early, and you're like, oh my God, everybody should have known this when I wish I knew it earlier. and there's the things that you hold on to as you as you, I'm going to say mature, and as you like start to like
grow.
put out more, grow. But yeah, there's so many things that new artists, you're like, oh, I wish I could tell you all this whole list of things that you must figure out soon.
Yeah, I was, as you were saying that, I was trying to think of like what that thing is for me. Like, what is that piece of advice? And honestly, I guess like so many of those pieces of advice are so cliche, like authentically be yourself. That sounds so cliche, but it really is the truest thing, because your career is your brand rather is you are your brand. So if you decide that I'm a cowboy through and through, but maybe you're actually not, you gotta keep that up all the time, because if an elevator door opens and you walk out of it not wearing your cowboy hat or whatever, people will be like, well, I don't know if I believe this music. And I think that something so special about country music is that it's believable and it's real and it's true stories about actual people. And I think it would just be really painful to live your life as somebody you aren't. And that's why that piece of advice is so cliche, because we hear it all the time because it's so true. But I think a lot of the finer pieces of advice, it's really hard to cling on to just one thing, because as we've discussed, the music industry has changed so much, even from the time that I started, and it's going to continue to change as the years go by. So it's kind of tough to it's tough to be like, what did I wish I knew at that point? I guess the other thing that jumps into my head is just surround yourself with really good people that you trust, because building a team is tough and trusting a team is even harder. And don't get me wrong, I love and trust my team so much, but that doesn't come overnight. You don't just immediately trust your whatever, I'll say publicist, because I know mine is on the call right now. You don't just immediately trust them the minute you meet them, or at least I didn't. You need to grow that trust, and you need to know that in order to trust someone, you need to know each other's goals and habits and ambitions and things, and that all takes time. So I don't know, advice is kind of tough because it's evolving too.
I think those two pieces of advice are like going to always be the constant. Like, yeah, the industry changes, but that advice is something that I think has always been the same, and I can't imagine that ever changing.
I really hope not, because I think authenticity is so important for artists, and that's what makes us unique, is just being exactly who we are and not trying to be somebody else that we think is cool.
I'm also thinking there's a reason those pieces of advice are in place, and that's because there are nuances of the industry and pressures of the industry that are always going to sway you in the opposite direction of being yourself,
Yeah, so true.
So,
and I think that's why it's also important to trust your team, because you're trusting them with that brand that should be authentic to you, and you have to trust that they know what's right for you and trust that they trust you back.
So how fucking annoying is it when you're like being yourself, singing about the way you grew up, and people are like, that's not how you grew up? Are you like, what the hell?
Yeah, I wrote a whole song about it. You guys have heard it. It is really annoying. And I think that, it's also what makes releasing music so scary, is not necessarily that people say that's not how she is, or that's not blah, blah, blah. Or, it's that in your heart that these songs are real and true. And so they are about real people. They are about real stories most of the time. Sometimes we write songs just for fun that, maybe you're just storytelling and it's not necessarily something you've lived through. And I think that's okay too, if you're honest about that. But it's scary because it hurts more when somebody doesn't like it, or when someone calls you out on something. It's personal.
It feels personal because it is personal.
Exactly. But yeah, it's really frustrating. It happened actually when I was on tour in the UK and Ireland, although I'll leave Ireland out of it because they didn't do it. It was a London-based vlogger, I think, that had come to the show, and they were like, we loved the songs, we loved her voice, she's blah, 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 whatever. It was very complimentary. But then of course, the one thing that I stuck to was the one comment where they said, well, but I just didn't feel like it all felt very Nashville. It didn't feel very like Canadian country. And I was like, what does that mean to you. I'm not writing about Nashville. I'm actually, yeah, really. I'm actually not even specifically writing about Canada. I'm writing about my experience, wherever that took place. Lots of times that was where I grew up in Langenberg. Lots of times that's where I live now in Rocanville. It's in these small towns. I'm writing about my experience. That doesn't have to. Also, have you ever been to Canada? Like, I'm not I'm not writing about. Sorry that my moose wasn't wearing a cowboy hat, or like in the song.
I wasn't Commonwealth enough for you. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Sheesh.
So I don't know. It was. Those things will always happen, and people will always have opinions that they're entitled to, but that wasn't, I didn't like that very much. So I did end up writing a song about it that eventually, I know you guys specifically have already heard, but eventually the greater public will hear it too. But I wrote a song because I was frustrated. I was like, I'm never, in my early days, I was way too pop. Like I had said earlier, on this podcast, I was never country enough. And then I was like, okay, well, let's throw a fiddle on it. And that didn't feel good to me always. And then I go and do something else, and I'm like, well, now I'm to Nashville. I'm like, what is that even? I'm literally staring at an actual red barn in my yard, in my farm, outside. I don't even live in this small town of 1,000 people. I live 14 kilometers outside of it on 20 acres of land. And I was like, and that's to Nashville? I was like,
to those people, hold up your platinum record and say, get out of here.
Also, thanks for the content at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, well, I really like that song actually, so it worked out good. But it's always a little frustrating when I guess you feel misunderstood.
I actually want to sincerely want to write a response to that blog post.
I should find it and frame it.
It's a little late now.
Keep it in my suitcase. Yeah.
When I'm feeling irritated.
Yes.
Channel it over there.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about, you have a nice tour schedule. You go out on tour for a few months and you hit one side or the other. And I'm forgetting if it was 2023 or 2024 that you were last touring, because I recall you coming through Toronto and London and that area. And I lived here, so it must have been the last 3 years.
Was it the Map Dot tour?
Maybe.
That was in 2022.
Okay.
Our touring in Canada is a little messy-ish, I guess, because usually we all go out for one-offs in the summer. So from end of May to beginning of October, end of September. And lots of people think that's on tour. I don't consider that on tour because you're just flying everywhere. There's no routing. It's a whole mess.
That's just the festival circuit.
No, it is. It's
Literally.
so true. But yeah, I've done the Map Dot tour was in 2022, which we did not quite coast to coast, but most of the country. And then last winter, I did the Winter Wonderland tour, which was a Christmas tour. We only really did the west side because nobody, you need time to do the whole country, and nobody was ready for Christmas music in September, I guess.
I mean, I would have been, but it's fine.
We do.
So do you have tour plans coming up this year or next?
Christmas in July tour?
Christmas in July? Oh my gosh, that would be a better idea so I could actually be home for Christmas. We will have some exciting announcements coming in the next few months. Yeah.
That's exciting. It will be exciting to tour new music too. But also when you get to your the crowd, are you shocked at how I can only imagine the volume at which people are screaming cheap wine and cigarettes, but also country girls. I feel like people, what are those songs that get people just whoa, this place is shaking?
Well, cheap wine, you're right, is always kind of a constant. But what's been really cool that I've noticed over the last year is that those songs are changing, and they're a little bit different every night. Some nights it's Map Dot, some nights it's country girls. It's just really, some nights it's Go Getter. It's weird because I remember that being the current single, usually whatever the single was at the time, and then always cheap wine. That's a rock solid people, which is awesome to have in my back pocket. But it's cool because it feels like a testament to, again, how long I've been doing this. And it seems like the people that are kind of my age and older are always the cheap wine. And then you see the younger crowd listening to some of the newer stuff. And it's really cool because I realized that people are having kids and this is becoming a generational thing, and they're
that is so
you
wild
know,
to think about.
it's so weird. I've really not talked about it a lot, but it's just not come up. But it's cool to see people raising their kids on my music the way that my mom raised me on Shania Twain. And what's even cooler is to be in a place where I'm still releasing music and I'm still touring and I get to see it. I'm visually witnessing this happen, and it's really special. And that's just one of those, like, I guess I'm going to say accomplishments because it's something I'm really proud of, that you can't ever sit down and really think about and write out. Like, it's just so much bigger than, you know, I want to get a Juno, I want to have a platinum record, I want to win a CCMA, whatever those things are. This is not a goal that I ever set out because it's just not something that you even think about. And just to see it now is wild.
This feels like a couple episodes ago we were talking to a songwriter, an emerging artist. Her name is Parker Gray. And we were asking her about her goals for this year, and she was like, one of my goals is to leave room for the magic. And that right there, the thing you didn't think would be something really cool to, like, it is a milestone to be, we're going to call it the generational artist. You have these people who are growing up on your music. That feels like one of those things that you like didn't expect, or you can't like put on a list, but you're like, wow, in all of this journey, this is one of those things. It's like the little magic that happens where you get to achieve something like this.
That just shows you how much smarter Parker is than me and probably everyone else, because that's such a smart thing to do and to carve out space for, because life gets so busy and it's so hard to reflect on all your accomplishments. And even in interviews, it's literally, as we're speaking today, I put out a new song today and people will be like, what's next for Jess Moskaluke? And I'm like, don't say that. I worked so hard for this one day, you know. And I get it, but we just live in a world, I would say an industry, but I really think we live in a world right now of things that are instant and instant gratification, and we're constantly wanting new and what's next. And I get it, but it's so annoying. So kudos to Parker for putting that there, because I think it is really important to celebrate how hard that we've worked and the things that we've accomplished, because we often just skip over them right to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
This sounds like a good time to like go through your catalog, reflect,
reminisce
on how big of a mainstay you are in this industry and in this genre.
Thank you.
So, when you mentioned Light Up the Night, I was like, what is on that album? And I kind of started looking ahead of time. And I was like, Used. I may have forgotten about that song, but that's where I want to start. Sometimes I start at the bottom.
Yes.
Last time I started at the top. We're starting randomly right there.
I wouldn't know. I don't remember the track listing, but I love Used. I love talking about it.
I loved that song. And
thank you.
Again, just where were you at when you were putting that one out? It was a radio single, right? So
yeah. I'm getting in the headspace. Sorry,
okay.
I know that I visibly just zoned out. I was trying to think.
I just forced you into 2014 also. So
yeah.
I just dragged you back in time.
So when I first heard that song, so when that, obviously, you know these songs for a little bit longer than when they come out. So that whole record was really cool because it was the first record that I did with my producer, Corey Crowder, who's like obviously a longtime friend of mine. He's like my family away from my family. So Corey was an artist himself, and we had a lot in common because Corey kind of like blew up on MySpace when he was an artist rather. And then I was the next generation of that who kind of, had a following on YouTube. And so we had a lot in common, and I was ready to put out my first conscious record collection of songs that I knew I was putting together for that purpose. And Corey's like, well, here's a bunch of songs that I really wanted to put out that I never got to. And there was a bunch of songs in there that he was like, this might not work for a girl, but I want you to hear it as my buddy anyway, because it's cool. And I was like, there were so many songs in there that I was like, let's just change some pronouns to make them my pronouns. And, let's change a few things here and there. And it was really cool because at the time there wasn't a lot of girls singing about those topics. And I, probably because of the time we were in, actually got a lot of flack for Used. Because I got a lot of flack for people saying, why would you promote that message that you could you know that this person is bad for you, and you know that they're using you, but you don't care because you like them and it's great. I was like, because that's a thing that happens to women my age, and that's a thing that has happened to me. And I didn't claim to be a role model, and I'm not encouraging this mindset. I'm just saying that this is something that happened to me, and that's true and honest and authentic. And I remember doing a talk radio station and talking about this with my now friend Jeff MacArthur, and he was the first one that like really gave me the platform to be like, talk about this, because I think people are misunderstanding, they're getting it wrong. And it was really cool to be able to have the platform to talk about it, because we've all been there. We're just looking for songs to relate to. I'm not preaching in, at least not every song, and that certainly wasn't one.
That's so antiquated, and that was only 11 years ago.
I know.
What the hell? I think people probably ask you about cheap wine and cigarettes, and we've already talked about, so I'm going to purposely skip that one.
Fine with me.
Okay. What about Take Me Home? That feels like something people could have been like,
Yeah.
Are you just making up for the other message of getting used? Now you're not going to let them take you home?
Take Me Home is cool because it kind of has a double meaning, and it depends on the way that you hear that song. Because I'm saying you ain't going to take me home, and that to you, maybe that means, no, I'm not going to let you. But to other people, maybe that means, I know you're not going to take me home. What are we doing that here? So I really loved that it had either message for whoever needed to hear it either way. So I think because of that, I didn't get as much flack. And also it was a few years later, so hopefully we have grown.
Caught up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I really loved writing Take Me Home. It was, the interesting thing is when I was writing a lot of these songs, I was in a good place and I was in a good, healthy relationship. But now that I had this new songwriting tool under my belt and had felt a little more confident in it, I was kind of like, I don't want to say working through past traumas, because I don't really use songwriting in that way, but I was latching on to previous feelings. So I was already with my husband at the time that song came out. We weren't married at the time, but we were together. But that song was about a different relationship that I was in, where I was really frustrated because I knew that this person had come to, this bar with another person. And then all of a sudden she was gone and his eyes were on me the whole night, and he was talking to my best friend. And I was just like, this is so dumb. Like, we both know you're not going to take me home, So, it's a powerful song.
How did that conversation go with your, then boyfriend, but now husband, of like releasing songs that you're like, this isn't about you? Like,
it's really funny because that conversation never happened. I think he just knew. He knows the
He knew what he signed up for.
He knew what he signed up for. He knows my previous dating history very well. It's a small town.
Fair.
So I think that when he hears these stories, he knows exactly what's going on for the most part. So I'm thankful for that. Not that I wouldn't have the conversation, but I just don't. I think he knows me so well, and I don't think we had to have it.
Good.
Thank God.
What about Nothing I Don't Love About You?
Well, he knows that one is about him. So that's good. That was really fun. Sometimes it's interesting because, like I said, because I'm in a healthy, happy marriage and have been for almost 7 years now, it's like, okay, that becomes a little boring to write about at times. But this one wasn't. I was like, let's just write something fun. It's like, not every relationship is perfect. And there are things about Clay that drive me crazy, but those things are what make him him. And without them, I would probably miss those things. Except the way he chews. I would really, that's good. Yeah.
Oh no.
If he chewed differently, that would be cool. But yeah, so it was kind of just a fun way to kind of put a spin on it. And we wanted to really make some interesting and fun, sonic choices in that song. I'm laughing because I remember, Corey. So that song was produced by Corey Crowder, who produces most of my songs. but in the last few years, we've brought in other producers to co-produce things to put fresh sounds on it. Mm-hmm. And the co-producer on that song was a gentleman that we also co-wrote the song with, Mark Holman. And all of a sudden, Corey had this idea, and he went into the studio and he looked directly at me and he's like, "Do not laugh." And I was like, "Okay, I can't promise that at all." And he went in there and he was like, looked so serious. And to get a really good visual of this, Corey's like an 8-foot tall man. He's the tallest person I know. He's like this, redneck guy. And he gets in there and he's like got one headphone on. And he's like, "Woo!" And I was like, "What is happening right now?" Like I had to leave the room because I was laughing at him. And then so now when you listen to that song, you can hear those sounds in the background, like buried. And I was like, whoa, those are actually so cool. But watching you do that was a really little bit of an ick. Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do one more. Let's do Knockoff.
Okay. Yeah, Knockoff is cool because we tried to write it twice with two different groups of people. So Corey and I wrote that, and we were going to write it with one other writer on a Monday. And that writer came in, and she's a great writer. I've written tons of things with her in the past. And we tossed out this idea. I don't remember if it was mine or Corey's, and it doesn't matter, but we're like, I think it would be this song called Knockoff, and it's about this, blah, blah, blah. And she made actually a very good point. And she was like, I think that could be a mean song. I think that could be a little bit mean. And I just don't think that's who Jess is. And I was like, oh, that's a really good point, actually. Thank you for saying that. Didn't write it, wrote something else that day. I think we actually may have written Heartbreaker that day. But then the next day, Corey and I came back into the studio with Jade Eagleson, and before Jade got there, both of us were like, I've been doing some thinking, and I think we can write this without making it mean. Glad it came up because we didn't want that to be the thing, but I don't think this song is about the new girl. I think it's about the guy. I think you could be mean to the guy because he did you dirty, and that's fine. It's warranted. So we ended up writing it the very next day with Jade, and it was perfect because at the time I was really feeling the 90s country vibe, and I was like, that's something that I grew up on that I haven't done. So once again, let's try and take something that I'm really heavily influenced by and make it my own. Let's update it. Let's put some pop in that too. And yeah, we came up with Knockoff, and Jade was the perfect person to do it because he is the epitome of 90s country music. I thought I was the world's biggest Shania Twain fan, and I was wrong. Then I met Jader.
My favorite, I've seen Jade a few times, early in his career, and my favorite is when he would sing a Shania Twain song on stage. Love it.
Yeah, I know. If there's any one person I could go to a Shania concert with, it would be Jade, because it would just be, speaking of icks, probably everyone watching us be at that concert would be like, that's embarrassing. These people are nuts.
I actually have I know Jenna said last one, but I have one, and it's kind of a collective one.
Keep doing this. You keep doing this.
I know, because I keep waiting to see if you're going to do what I do.
Ask it, yeah.
The ones that he wants and doesn't tell me in advance.
But this is kind of a collective one. You've released a lot of covers, at least to DSPs, and albums of covers, and from the middle with the Hunter Brothers, Britney Spears' Toxic, Say My Name from Destiny's Child. Where does where do those fit in, and are we going to get more covers?
So those fit in because I started my whole entire career on YouTube releasing covers. And the reason that we had put out covers is because I was kind of just starting to write at the time, and we wanted to work with the YouTube algorithm and work with the success of what other songs were gaining at radio and on the Billboard charts and stuff. And we would try it as soon as a song hit number one, or as soon as we saw it climb on its way to number one, we would record it. And we were putting out covers every 7 to 14 days to try and get momentum. And that's how I got noticed by my record label. And so kind of as an homage to that, we were putting out covers because I couldn't write the songs that fast. And I couldn't record them and put out videos that fast. So I was like, let's do covers. And then when we have a song, I don't want to rush an original, but I can rush a cover. We can do an acoustic spin on something. So that's kind of where my love for covers comes in. I don't have any plans to record any covers right now, but I could see myself doing it again for sure. It's a really nice placeholder when you do take a little bit of a break from music. Once again, covers have always been there for me. They've always been there when I'm like needing a little time to write or to record or to even just take time off. I can kind of be like, hey, I'm still here. And as a thank you to my fans, I'm like, I need some time to do whatever it is I need to do, but here's something to tie you over in case my catalog of the last 24 singles isn't enough, I guess. But so that's kind of why we have done and do covers.
Okay, last thing then. No thoughts. First thing that comes to your mind, what's your go-to cover song to sing karaoke?
Alone by Heart.
Oh. Love.
Yeah.
There was no thinking for that. That just like came right to you.
Yeah, but I actually hate karaoke so much.
Sorry.
My husband loves it. He will do karaoke. If anyone ever asks me, I just like turn around and I'm like, go for it. It's your time to shine, honey.
Well, Jess, I think this is a great place to end. What do you have coming? I'm just kidding.
What's next?
You're literally like, what the? No, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to sit down and chat with you. And happy release day.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Nice to chat with you guys.
You too.
Thanks for listening to another episode of On the Porch with Front Porch Music. We're so lucky to be able to chat with artists and make episodes like this one. If you like the podcast, remember to rate and review us, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. It's the easiest way to support the show. Remember to check out frontporchmusic.ca to keep up with new music releases, exclusive artist interviews, and more. We'll catch you again on The Porch in a couple of weeks. On The Porch is hosted by Logan Miller and Jenna Weiser, and produced and edited by Jason Saunders. That's me. Our theme song is written, produced, and performed by Owen Wigling.